is thinking about what makes effective learning environments. And so when we're in those very large lecture theatres, sometimes that can be the very antithesis and very much go against what promotes learning. So how can we transform those to capture what's the best about student learning? Yeah? And that's what I want you to think about. So these are the sort of things that we know underpin successful learning. Encouraging students to want or need or identify a need to learn something, actually doing something more than just sitting listening passively to you talking, having opportunities to make sense, getting feedback, being able to talk about their learning. Okay? So if you think about those areas of this diagram, how can we capture those? How can we get those happening in the lecture theatre? And then if you remember back from last time I was here, some of these kind of key statistics, students only hear about half of what you're saying. In the first 10 minutes they're very attentive, in the last 10 minutes they're not very attentive, they're looking at their watch, using images and visualizations. All of those stats that were in there, how can we use that to share with colleagues about what we should be doing in the lecture theatre? Thinking about using images. Thinking about using mobile devices, how can we use those? So we've used those a few times over this course to get feedback, for you to go and find information and share, to solve problems, etc. So how can you use those mobile devices in the classroom to kind of transform the learning space? So your challenge now then is to create a poster to capture what you've learned in Module 1 and 2, as well as your own experience of learning in lecture theatres, either from teaching yourselves, thinking back to when you were a student and learning in lecture theatres, thinking about any feedback you've got from your peer observation or from observing others. What did you see in those lectures that was really effective that you would like to capture? And the poster could be like this kind of idea, you know, top tips for teaching in large classrooms, that kind of idea. And what I would really like to do is if you all work in groups on posters, and we'll capture those, we'll take some photographs of those, but what would be really nice is actually to see if we can develop something like an infographic with all of the best ideas and see if the university will then print that and share that more widely. So I've just given you an example. There's loads of, I'm sure you've all used infographics. This is one that I created with another group of academics a while ago. And there's a whole series of these which were really designed about, and this is probably not the best one to show you, because this one comes alive, that's why it's not a very good one to show you. You have to click on the things to get the sound. But this one here is a poster to encourage students about their reading. So they go around this circle, and actually when you click on all these things, you get like a little video clip. So this is not the best one to show you, sorry, but it's this idea that you get this kind of graphic poster that you can then share with colleagues, which will capture all of our ideas. And there's many free tools for creating things like this. I'll find some better ones during the course of your work. So just going back to the challenge then, for the first thing I want you to do this morning, and it's really just capturing all of these ideas within a poster. And however you want to do it, but that kind of BuzzFeed approach of top 10 tips or top 5 tips for teaching in large lectures, or capturing it in some ways like that, or how students learn. Okay? Pens, paper, coffee, buns. So we've been talking about large group teaching, and now it's the time to start thinking about the small group work. And really some of these ideas carry over, and I think as somebody asked at the beginning, what do we mean by large and what do we mean by small? And any kind of teaching to be meaningful has to kind of have some kind of interaction with the students. So even within those large groups, you're thinking of ways to make it individualised and personalised to the individual student. But when you're working specifically in very small groups, the way you behave, the way you talk to individual students starts to become much more front and centre of what you're doing. And you can bring in a lot of things, unconscious biases and different ways of approaching different students without thinking about it. And I think I put in the first week module a wee quiz about unconscious bias. And I think it's quite enlightening to do that, because then you realise that everybody has these biases, and of course they are unconscious, so you're not thinking about them. So there's little things that when you're working in groups that you tend to talk to people like you, or people that have the same ideas as you, and you kind of reinforce those naturally, rather than kind of trying to open it out and respect lots of different ideas and values. So those are things that you kind of might want to think about in terms of small group teaching. Who has prepared and is ready to do a demonstration? You guys are. You can kick off. This is going to be setting the bar very high, I think. And do you want to play the video first, or do you want to just do it all from the beginning?
We have to rearrange the stage.
Okay, well, while you guys get ready... That was marvellous. Thank you very much, Deborah. Okay, some other comments on how other people deal with someone coming in late to the class. So there was a really nice example of kind of like focusing the attention on that. You kind of realise that your original teaching strategy has been lost a little bit. So your wonderful kind of display of the text was not going to happen. And so immediately it's that kind of being flexible and adaptable, saying, right, okay, let's change the focus of this. Anybody else got any other strategies or other ways that they would have dealt with that situation from your own experiences? Who just tends to ignore latecomers and carry on regardless? Yeah. Yes.
They cannot actually class.
Sorry, what was that one?
They cannot actually class.
They cannot enter the class.
We don't success session.
Oh, okay, right. So you just lock the door. Or, right. And does that mean everybody just arrives on time, or do you just get...
Exact solution.
Yeah. Okay. Any other strategies? Sorry? The door is closed, you're not allowed in. Yeah. Any other suggestions of how you deal with it? Yeah, no, I mean, I tend to like do what you do, just let them come and go as they like. But it's that specific thing where there's so much commotion and so much disruption, which you portray beautifully, and hopefully it's not quite as bad as that. Yeah.
But how can we add the incentive to not to be late again? So
yeah,
I also think that this is a good strategy to handle this, but what this is lacking is the incentive for the students not to do this again.
Yeah.
May I answer? I mean, this is my strategy. I do the most interesting things and the most fun at the very beginning of the course, in the first 20 minutes, and it becomes a rumor, a sort of, legend, and they hear about it from their friends, and they try not to miss the first 20 minutes. Right? This is my own strategy.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a couple of important things there. That, making sure that you're giving really important information in the first 5 or 10 minutes. If your first 5 or 10 minutes you could miss because you're just kind of, going, not doing anything very interesting. And it also goes back to, do you remember the head of the statistics, that people take in the most information in that first 10 minutes. So if you make that really important, either really interesting or dynamic, then I think that can be one strategy as well. I really don't know. I've tried lots of different strategies and different things work with different students. I think kind of I don't know. I suppose kind of making them feel bad about coming in late means that the next time they're late, so if you're kind of having to deal with traffic or what have you, and they're 2 or 3 minutes late, they're not going to come in at all. So do you want that situation where they don't come in at all, or that's a decision that you need to make for your own classes?
I think, especially in Istanbul, it's okay to be late a little bit. I mean, they can be late as long as they want to be part of the class afterwards.
Yeah.
I welcome them. But they have to come in silently, without talking to anybody, and find the first seat available.
Yeah.
So as if they're late for a movie theater, and they're not going to go all over the seats and bother anybody. So they just have to go and pick the first seat available and not bother anyone. So that's
some of it is some of it is just etiquette and professional values and professional behaviour. And I suppose it's some of those things that you're really instilling right from the get-go. Do you, anybody else got any suggestions about how they deal with it? Okay, you guys want to go now?
Yeah.
And you're just going to do it as well, you don't need to see the video, yeah? So what scenario are you doing? Domineering. Lovely. Yeah. And if it's going to be a discussive topic like that, you might try to set it up as a formal debate where you get into working groups and say, right, each of you give a 1-minute argument, and then that way it becomes much more structured so that you can reduce the influence of one person. In a less formal discussion where somebody just keeps asking either, and I have this a lot in working with academic staff, where whatever you say, one person just keeps asking question. So all of the group want to get on with an activity, but one person in the room just keeps asking questions and going more and more off track in terms of what the activity is. How do you think you would manage that situation? Give me some ideas.
Because my students do not like talking too much. They are engineering students. In fact, I like that domineering students. However, up to some point.
Yes, yeah.
And for example, 3 questions or 4 questions, I let him or her answer the question or ask a question. Then I told her that, please let me talk with others a few minutes. I know that you know it, you are the best, but let me make a discussion with others.
Yeah.
She's okay with this mostly, and I asked the other guys what they are talking about, their opinion. And after further 15 minutes, I again asked the domineering students, now you can continue. And I try to balance.
Yeah, give them
thing. However, you are right that stressing thing between the talkative ones and the ones that they are not talking too much. They do not like the domineering students.
No.
Even if he's talking right.
Yes.
They don't like the style. Mostly.
Maybe it's because the domineering student sets the threshold for the others. So if I'm supposed to talk, if I'm supposed to speak in the classroom, I'm supposed to be at that level.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm not at that level, it's better not to talk.
To say anything, yeah. It's interesting. I mean, the strategy I tend to try to do is ask that person to discuss it with their group rather than, bring it back to the whole group. And so, right, okay, there's some good ideas. Discuss them with the group, see what the other people in your group think. Rather than, they just kind of want to dominate the whole room. Yeah. Anybody else got any other strategies? It's quite an interesting one because you don't want to. I think it's the point you made. It's that balance because you want to encourage them to talk, and you don't want to kind of put them down so that other people think, oh, I'm not going to say anything because I'll get put down. It's that kind of, but without letting it only be them. And I think there's another interesting point that you made there that it's that kind of if one person is saying everything. Apart from that, some people just switch off, and some people think, oh, I can't, make a comment that's as good as that or as valuable as that, even if the first comments are not that useful. Excellent, very well done. I enjoyed that.
Sometimes a student asks too many questions. You answer, and he continues asking, and then I say, let's talk out of the class because everybody's focus is
I think that's another strategy as well. If it starts, we kind of talked about that as well yesterday in terms of assessment and feedback. If there's it's all about them and their piece of work and all the rest of it, and he's like, right, okay, let's move that on. I think unless it's a general problem. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else got any other strategies for domineering students?